I'm really glad they did a practice run of that because that was amazing. Awesome. So, hi everyone. I'm Tierney Cyren. I'm developer advocate at NodeSource, and I do a bunch of things. But here today, I'm excited to talk to you about building foundations of the Node.js community. So, developer advocate at NodeSource. I'm chairperson of the community committee for about another week. We're going through elections right now. A few of my coworkers have sometimes called me human clickbait. I really enjoy that title, even though it's a little bit derogatory, but I appreciate it. And then another one of my coworkers called me an emoji personified, and you're going to kind of see that manifested today in my talk. Awesome. So I'm here to talk to you about Node.js, and it's why it is awesome. There are a lot of reasons, and I want to go into a few of those before we dig into some of the bits around community. So, Node is everywhere you look. There are all kinds of users of Node. The ecosystem consists of a wide variety of different users, use cases, different deployments, different strategies, monorepos, microservices. There's so many different ways to use Node. And that's because of how diverse it is in terms of how it's deployed. And on top of that, even the contributors to the project are global. There's a ton in Europe. We're beginning to engage people in Africa. There's a ton in North America. We have a bunch in Asia. So Node is really a global project. Yesterday, I kind of reached out to a few people on Twitter and said, what are your use cases for Node? How are you using Node in an interesting way? One of the ones that I really like the most is NASA built out an open mission control tool with Node. BBC is using it for almost everything. Adobe uses it for all their creative cloud tools. So, this kind of engagement makes me realize that the world at this point is really built on JavaScript, and it's built on Node. Beyond that, though, the kind of foundation of all this is Node's ecosystem. There's a truly, truly amazing ecosystem that we've built up as a community and as a collective of developers. This is arguably one of the biggest strengths of Node.js as a platform is how much code there is, how much existing and prior art there is that you can start using and start playing with today. So here's some stats. These are stats from NPM and Unpackage. Typically, I've just talked about NPM in this slide, but Unpackage is actually a pretty incredible example of how our mental model of NPM as the source of code for Node and for JavaScript isn't necessarily true anymore. So on the NPM side, there's 780,000 packages published. When I first gave this a version of this talk 2 years ago, there were 350,000 modules published to the repository, the registry. 6 billion downloads in the last week, and 25 billion in the last month. I had to change that slide about 5 minutes ago because yesterday it was 24 billion downloads. So these numbers are in flux, but they are ridiculously large. And again, when I gave this talk for the first time, those numbers were under 9 billion per month. So under 9 billion downloads of every module per month in the registry. That doesn't include other sources like Unpackage or Yarn's registry or anything like that. To give context, this is just kind of Node's metrics. In comparison, the next largest registry of code is Maven Central, which has just over 200,000 modules published to it. Unfortunately, the site that I usually use to illustrate that actually went down, module counts. So if you know the maintainer, I'd love to talk to them and see how I can help get that back up. But there are so many downloads for Node and for JavaScript that every single bit of code at this point is a vital piece of infrastructure for how the world works. So even below that, there's people. People are behind all of this. Node has a very astonishing community. And I've begun to try to not say community, I've begun to try to say ecosystem, because there are so many different players in this community that there's too many communities represented to just call it a community. So in this ecosystem, we have people who are from DevOps teams. We have people who work on design systems. We have people who work on animation. We have people who work on building backend servers and microservices and monorepos. Like, there's so many different ways to approach how you create applications with JavaScript and with Node. And the best part is you only need to know JavaScript. That's the key fundamental piece here, is to open this world of web development and development in general. It doesn't even need to be web development anymore. You just need to learn JavaScript. And because of that, it's become the universal language. You can use it on the server, on IoT devices, on the web. You can use it anywhere. And because of that, it really does enable further people to continue joining this community and for us to continue growing together. So Node is everywhere. We have a massive ecosystem, and we have an incredible community. These are the reasons that I think Node is awesome, but really they're just one thing. They're all community. Community encompasses everything we do with JavaScript and Node at this point. Every single line of code that you write, every single line of code that you consume has to do with some effort around community. There is an insurmountable path here where you can't separate JavaScript from its community and its ecosystem anymore. So Node Core, the modules that you're consuming, education, outreach, and inclusivity, all of these things are tied back to the JavaScript community, what we're doing here today. And so with this, the Node project has kind of recognized that we need to give community more attention and more space and give it a first-class level of participation in the Node project itself. So we've been working to do that. I'm going to talk a bit more about that, but the path we got to that decision, or how we got to that understanding, is actually super important. So I'm going to start describing that path a bit prior to when I joined and started contributing to Node. And I'm going to be talking about the IO.js story. But to do that, we're also going to need to talk about the Node Forward story. And these two things are very closely tied, though people don't know about Node Forward as much as they might know about IO.js. So Node Forward kind of laid the foundation for what the Node Foundation, the actual corporate entity in the US, is today. So a lot of people who were contributing to Node at the time, during Node 10, when it was still under Joyent, started working to make sure that Node was going to have a long-term future. One that they would be able to continue contributing it, help ship new JavaScript features in Node, continue updating V8 as a core dependency. But they kind of grew frustrated with that, and it was kind of stalling out. So that led to a single individual, Fyodor, who works at PayPal, kind of taking things into his own hands. And on Thanksgiving Day in the US, so Thanksgiving is a US holiday, in 2014, Fyodor just kind of said, I'm going to do it, and he went and forked to Node. That's when he created IO.js, and that one person's decision to go do this really fundamental and scary thing put us where we are today. Jump forward 2.5 months, that gets us to IO.js 1.0, and then the release of quite a bit of press and work around IO.js. So this triggered Michael Rogers to do a call out for contributors, and a few other kind of very fundamental things. And people started questioning, well, which one do we go with? What's this IO.js thing, and do we need to be concerned about Node's future? So this is a quote from Michael Rogers, who was one of the core people to Node together, and he also was, he created NodeConf, that concept. So the quote is, before the fork, everybody was fighting, they weren't happy about it. Everybody was fighting to get stuff in and fighting to make the changes happen. So this includes getting a newer version of V8, getting ES6 shipped in Node. After the fork, everyone was content just getting what they wanted to do done. That is really core. That encapsulates my experiences prior to IO.js with Node, and it also encapsulates my experiences after IO.js with Node as it is today. So this is a quote from open source. This framework kind of laid the groundwork for a lot of the current Node.js project's governance. It's really important that in the project, people who come in and contribute are able to continue contributing. That's one of the core fundamental things that we've been building on for a while now. And with that, we've been enabling community unintentionally. We've been able to recognize people who come in and contribute who aren't from a typical background, who might not be from a major corporation, or who might not be from an employed background, or who might not even be a developer normally. I kind of did this. This was the path I took myself, and I'll get to that in a bit. But it's okay when people drop off. It's okay when people come in randomly. It's okay when people just want to contribute a bit or they want to contribute a lot. We are okay with how people come and want to contribute their own time, because that's what open source is about, right? This core fundamental principle helps us enable developers. And by doing that, we're really enabling community. So this kind of begs the question, who can contribute to Node? Do you have to be a developer? Do you have to know JavaScript? Do you have to even know how to use GitHub? Because you'd be surprised by how many people don't know GitHub. It's a standard tool to a lot of us, but a lot of people aren't familiar with it. The answer is, nah, you don't. You really don't. Anyone can contribute. Anyone. It doesn't matter if you know JavaScript, if you know GitHub, if you know any other language. You just need to be curious and want to contribute to a community effort. I can speak to this personally. 3-4 years ago, roughly, I was totally unfamiliar with Node. I came from a background of PHP and open source forums. It wasn't a great experience in that kind of open source. But I went back and looked at how I got started with Node and found my first interaction with Node.js, or with IO.js, rather. So my first PR was adding Markdown links to the README of the website working group. You can see that they are hard-coded GitHub URLs direct to the different directories. So this was my first kind of real interaction on GitHub even. I'd done a few things here and there, but not a ton. I was just fixing missing Markdown links. That was how I started in Node. The result probably wasn't the best. You can kind of tell that it got closed. So I didn't know about local linking. I didn't know that you could use a relative path on GitHub or for Markdown. I didn't even know that that was a thing that existed in web development. So I kind of made an oopsie there, and the PR got closed and rejected. And that was OK. Fishrock123 kind of came in and helped me out a bit, and kind of showed me how I was wrong and showed that someone just kind of forgot to add it. Again, an oops. So what came of this? I was still interested. My PR got shut down. I realized that I had done something wrong while trying to fix something that someone else had kind of made a mistake on. That said, there was a lot of new and interesting things that were happening, and it seemed like a place where I could really contribute. This was a repo and a tool that I could come and contribute to. Because this response was so quick from Fishrock123, I felt welcome. I felt like I could continue contributing and actually make an impact here. I started making friends, and I became closer to the project, and I helped out kind of start a few new things. I actually now work with Fishrock123 at NodeSource. His name's Jeremiah, and I talk to him basically every day, just working on Node. So that was kind of my experience starting with IO.js and now Node.js. Eventually IO and Node kind of merged back together. We created the foundation. We enabled a lot of things to happen, and we're now able to update V8 seamlessly. We're now able to ship LTS versions of Node that are really enabling those companies who are using Node to use Node effectively. But the community is up to some different things now. That was 3 years ago. That's kind of all history. Since then, a lot of things have happened in the community. There's been all of the updates to JavaScript. That's been a fundamental change since Node was launched originally. JavaScript wasn't being updated very often at that point. There's been a bunch of grassroots efforts, like around React, around different front-end frameworks, around Vue, around build tooling and CLI tools. There's a bunch of these new use cases for Node that we didn't really consider before. And so, as kind of growing from all of that, we ended up on the Node.js Community Committee. So, what is the Community Committee? It's a top-level committee sitting next to the technical steering committee of the project and the Node Foundation board. So we sit at the highest level of the foundation. And we're tasked with building out and enabling JavaScript developers, DevOps teams, anyone who's interested in JavaScript or interested in Node to come and contribute, to come and use Node, to go and deploy Node. Beyond that, we really focus on enabling outward efforts. Typically, the TSC and Node were previously very inwardly focused, and there wasn't a ton of outward outreach. Now we're doing that, and it's been effective. It's been pretty incredible. So what we try to do is really enable the community. We want to make it easier for people to learn Node and learn JavaScript. We want to lower barriers to people coming into the project and coming into getting started with everything that you're going to see here today and tomorrow. And we really just want to enable people to succeed with Node. So we're really trying to enable community. Although, like I said earlier, I don't really like the term community as much anymore as ecosystem, because the community is so loosely defined and there are so many different distinct communities, again, that you'll see represented here at Nordic.js. It doesn't matter if you're from a DevOps team or if you're a module maintainer, or if you're just a JavaScript developer, or if you're a CLI developer, or if you're working on Webpack configs and making that more streamlined. All of that interacts with Node still. And that's what we're really trying to help enable. So what do we do? This is kind of the meat here of what we've been working on to come and try to help enable different projects and different individuals with Node.js and JavaScript. So internationalization. This is one of the things that IO.js saw the most success with. There was a lot of grassroots effort from international individuals to come and translate documentation, come and translate the website, come and translate the blog posts. I was writing weekly blog posts for IO.js, and those would get translated into 15 different languages. That was pretty cool. We're now seeing a lot of this again. The Electron team has come in and helped set up a lot of infrastructure for this with Crowdin and some translation tooling for the docs. So if you wanted to come and translate our docs to Swedish, we'd more than welcome that translation. Beyond that, we've also enabled the Travis CI and done a lot of tooling around this to actually come enable internationalization of documentation in the website. And we've already seen several hundred commits from South Korea, Japan, South America, a bunch of different organizations and people who are interested in this. User feedback. So this is an effort working on getting feedback from individuals like every single one of you in this room to know how we can make Node better for your different use cases. So whether it's DevOps, whether it's front-end tooling, whether it's build tooling, it doesn't matter. We're trying to help enable y'all have more insight and get the features that you want in Node. One of the ones that I'm most passionate about is diversity, inclusivity, and outreach. We currently have an outreach repo, so if you're interested in diversity and inclusivity, please reach out to me. I'd be happy to help get you involved in this. But this is a lot of work around making sure that we have a diverse and inclusive environment, and also that we are reaching people who might not typically be reached by tech efforts. There's a lot of different thoughts that are going into this, and we're continuing to build this out. But again, if you're interested in this, we would really love to have your help. Beyond that, there's also Node Together, which is an effort originally set up by Ashley Williams, who is then a developer relations individual or employee at at NPM. And this is an effort to have a meetup that's solely focused on individuals from underrepresented minorities. One of the things we're working on with that is actually going to, at least in the US, I don't know what the equivalent would be in Europe, but going to colleges or community colleges, and in the US, a community college is a two-year college, is usually targeted at people from underrepresented minorities. It's the main student base at those. So really trying to kind of hone in and make sure that people from underrepresented minorities are enabled to become a developer. Website redesign. So turns out that the Node.js website right now has been a temporary design for 3 years. At that point, it's no longer temporary, it's just the design. So we're doing a lot of work around this to kind of help engage the community a bit more, and this includes creating content, having community spaces on the site, and kind of a lot of work like that. We're close to being done with the design phase. We're going to be presenting the design to the project in October, and then from there we're going to begin implementing it. So if you want to help contribute to the actual technical implementation of our website, we'd love to have you. Partner communities. So this is an effort that I've been trying to kick off around engaging communities like Nordic.js, or like events, or even grassroots communities on Slack or Discord or IRC, to help engage people where they want to go. We don't want to own the Node ecosystem, the Node community. That's very antagonistic and against what Node is about. It's a very grassroots thing. And so this is an effort around enabling people to have their own communities. And that's something that I'm extremely excited for. Individual membership. So the Node Foundation, like I said, is technically a corporate entity in the US. There's corporate members, which pay $5,000 to $150,000 to be a corporate member. And then there's also individual membership. That was maintained by the foundation for a long time, and the committee has started taking that over. While going through this deck, I realized that the picture there says 9 days ago. I took that picture a while ago. It was really November 8th, 2017. So we've been working on this for a while. We've been making actually a lot of progress recently. One of the things that I'm very passionate about is, I don't know if you're familiar with the GitHub Student Developer Pack, but effectively what it does is it makes a bunch of web development and general development tools and resources available for students. So I'm very much pushing to actually do the same thing for foundation members, individual members, and get free credits for Azure and GCP and IBM Cloud and AWS, and free credits on things like Sentry and other kind of member projects or things that are related and would be useful to Node.js developers. So this is a bunch of examples. The entire talk has been kind of a bunch of examples. So everything from raw metrics to people and empowering people to come into the project, into Node.js, to even my origin story kind of in Node. There's a lot of things that there's a single common thread, actually, that all of these things have in common. And again, it's community. You all are the Node and JavaScript community. So if you're interested in helping out, if any of this sounded interesting or exciting to you, we'd love to have you. All you have to do is come. We'd love to see you, and we'd love to have your engagement and your participation and have your ideas, because we can't be diverse and inclusive if we don't have more people, if we don't have more opinions and thoughts and perspectives. So if you do want to get involved, I'll go through this kind of quickly. You can come get involved directly in the community committee itself. There's a few issues tagged good first issue. I've also gone through it actually last night and added a mentor available label. So generally, we can help you have a mentor if you want to kind of be walked through some of our processes, because they can be a bit intimidating. But they shouldn't be. And that's a communication thing. And so if you want to come help directly in the community committee, these are some of the issues that are currently labeled like that. Good first issue, and this issue, or this label, is actually across the entire org. So you can look at any repo that seems interesting, whether you're interested in how we build Node, like the actual binaries, or whether you're interested in actually releasing Node, like clicking the button that ships a version of Node. We can help you get started. The community committee also has a bunch of initiatives itself. So there's kind of sub-projects, and those are the things I kind of walked over a bit. If any of those sound interesting to you, we'd love to have your help. Again, if you want to help translate the docs into Swedish or any other language, we would love to have that, because that helps enable people who don't speak English to actually come and contribute and to use Node effectively. Beyond that, we'd also love if you think that there's a group that whether it's build tooling or some JavaScript frameworks or front-end frameworks, if you want to come help facilitate feedback from those users and you think you could help out with that and add a diverse perspective, we would really love that input and help. Also, we're very close to the launched website. We're gonna need to be working on the dev side, and that part of it just gets launched when it's done. So, if you're interested in coming and helping build the official Node.js website, we'd love to have you. And again, if you have a specific desire or place you would like to contribute to Node, not even on the community side, but just even in the technical side, reach out to me. I'd be happy to help get you involved. We'd love to have you. And I'd like to kind of end on a note that Node isn't really just about code. It's 100% about community. Whether that's code, whether it's writing, whether it's design, whether it's anything else, whatever your expertise is, there is a space for you in the Node project, and we'd love to have you. You can make a difference. You can help Node be better, and you can help us help Node. Thanks.
Thank you, Tierney.